Water, the elixir of existence. Water is incredibly important for so many things. For example, look what happens when I commit arson. See, if I had water and hadn't cut the water line, then none of that would have happened. When you think of uses for water, you think of drinking, bathing, transportation, water parks in upstate New York.
350 feet of terrifying darkness.
But when you think of uses for water in music, the list starts to shrink and does not have upstate New York on it. There's a water concerto by composer Tan Duan. This one recently went viral as Twitter rage bait. There's even liquindi, a type of African percussion where you literally drum the water. All of those are neat and also cool, but today I'd like to look at an instrument. Let me introduce you to the hydrolophone, an instrument that lets you play music with water. The other examples I provided showed ways to play water like a musical instrument, but what interested me about the hydrolophone was how it melded water and instrumentation together. If you hadn't seen the instrument and closed your eyes while listening, I bet you wouldn't immediately think it runs on water. But I wanted to go one step further. I wanted to see and hear and play a hydrolophone for myself. So to do this, I had to go to the greatest city in the United States. Toronto is a lot like Boston, except instead of having a Dunks on every corner, you are always within viewing distance of a Tim Hortons. And that's good because Tim Hortons is the most goated coffee chain to exist. Another difference is that Toronto is home to the inventor of the hydrolophone.
My name's Steve Mann, and I'm a professor of electrical and computer engineering at University of Toronto. I invented and designed and built the world's first smartwatch in 1998. Some of my other inventions include HDR, high dynamic range imaging, and another invention, of course, is the hydrolophone, the world's first underwater musical instrument.
I met him at HTO Beach, the last publicly accessible beach in Toronto. In fact, Steve does events around Toronto that involve interacting with water in novel ways. Sometimes it's viewing an underwater recreation of Van Gogh paintings, sometimes it's walking on water in big balls, and sometimes it's the hydrolophone.
So the first jet is A, second jet is B, third jet is C. If I block here, there's a separate underwater whistle for each note, and we can push more or less through it. And so the water comes more easily through the finger hole, but when you block it, it pushes it through the underwater whistle, and there's a separate discharge for each note, so you can push more or less. So it responds to pressure as well as to flow in a way that's kind of natural.
Playing the hydrolophone was a real surprise for me. At first glance, it may look simple, but there's something about covering the holes, feeling the water rush out from under your fingers that felt tactile and real. The closest instrument I could think of to the hydrolophone would be certain early pipe organs like the hydraulic organ or the hydraulis. There's a key difference though. The hydraulis used water to generate airflow. The air was still creating the sound. The hydrolophone, on the other hand, is purely water-based.
When you block, the water comes more easily through here, so it actually draws a vacuum on the whistle until you bear down on it. And you bear down on it just the right amount to neutralize the flow of the zero. And then you start to go to positive flow across the whistle, you're going to get the sound. So it's a combination of pressure and flow. A lot of people say, oh, is it a pressure sensor? Or is it a flow sensor? Well, it's a process, namely an underwater whistle, that depends on a combination of pressure and flow in a way that allows it to somewhat intricately play it in a way that feels natural.
Now you're probably looking at this and saying, sick, radical, totally tubular. They're also a 90s skater stereotype for some reason. But how did the hydrolophone come to be?
Well, my kindergarten teacher said there's 3 kinds of instruments: strings, percussion, and wind. And so I said strings, like one-dimensional solid matter, or percussion, like two-dimensional flat membrane solid matter, or three-dimensional bulk solid matter, or gas. So I said we got 3 kinds of instruments: solid, the solid, and gas. So I said that kind of taxonomy or ontology bothered you. The 3 states of matter: solid, solid, gas. There's something about it that didn't sit though. So I kind of said, well, could we make a musical instrument that made sound from liquid? And of course everybody said, don't be silly, because liquids are not compressible. But then if liquids are incompressible, then we should be able to communicate across the ocean in 0 time. We could send a message from here across transatlantic message in 0 time, because the speed of sound would be infinity, which we know it isn't. Sound goes about 4.5 times faster in water when it does in air. So I noticed that certain things like shower heads and certain faucets would sing or whistle and make sound, and then I experimented like putting the faucet completely underwater. Notice it still makes sound. There's no air in there involved when the sound. It's just purely hydrolophonic. I made up a new word, hydrolophone. So Greek word hydrolophonos, which means the voice in water.
Also cool, if you'd like to play the hydrolophone yourself, it's available in select places around the world, like Legoland, California. Steve also has plans to bring the hydrolophone to a wider audience. But his mission doesn't end here. The hydrolophone is a piece of his overarching philosophy called mersivity, an approach to technology that serves people and the environment.
Technology is a vessel, a container that connects us to our environment and to each other. Our government chopped down 1,500 mature trees and got rid of public access to what we had as an accessible beach. Ontario Place was the cottage for people who don't have cottages, was a place where everybody who doesn't have their own cottage can go and swim and access the water, and there's a wheelchair ramp to get into and out of the water. But now we don't have that anymore, because the trees were all cut down under cover of darkness. They waited till late at night when no one would see, and went in there with chainsaws, and by morning they were all cut down. The government took away our really only the only public access to water. And so now we're looking at other places like here and accessibility of water. And a lot of times they say, hey, no swimming. And there's all these miles of shoreline of waterfront, but there's no access. And so it's all commercialized, gasoline-powered, diesel-powered vessels. And so this is something we hope to bring into the world. We've made them on a small scale here and there, Chicago Children's Museum, Mayborn Museum in Texas, there's one in Beijing. We sold a few of them to places. Now we're trying to figure out how to bring it into production. But now we want to bring it into the world to raise people's awareness of the importance of clean water. And much like the immersive Van Gogh, right? The immersive Van Gogh was asking the question is, would you dump sewage and garbage into an art gallery?
And that's an excellent point that Steve brought up. When we think about clean water, we usually think about using it for drinking or bathing, and that makes sense. Both of those matter, but clean water impacts so many other facets of everyday life, and access to it is often taken for granted. As you saw earlier, this video is part of the Team Water Initiative. About 1 in 10 people around the world do not have access to clean water. But if we work together, we can help change that. Team Water is the biggest creator campaign ever, with one goal: raise $40 million to provide 2 million people with access to clean water for decades. It's about partnering with local communities to build long-lasting solutions and lay the groundwork for them to own and operate their water supply. And all of this is being done in collaboration with WaterAid, one of the most trusted water organizations in the world. Click the link in the description if you'd like to donate. $1 gives one person clean water for a year, $20 gives them clean water for decades. Let's make history together, because everyone deserves clean water, whether it's for drinking or for making music. And if you enjoy the intersection of music and science, check out this video where we scientifically prove that pop music is getting simpler.